Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on Mastering Findability in SharePoint and Beyond, presented by Elantis Solutions. Elantis is your guide helping you achieve your business objectives using Microsoft technologies. Whether you're looking to increase your competitive advantage through AI tools like Copilot or you're just starting your migration to SharePoint, we're here to help. In today's session, one of Elantis's Microsoft specialists is going to help you learn how you can customize and optimize your SharePoint search experience, which will help you keep your users productive and engaged. Now, I'm pleased to present one of our enterprise content management gurus, Jennifer Piercy. Jennifer has been in the IT field for over 20 years. She's got a lot of experience in SharePoint architecture, SharePoint development, and she has quite a diverse background, which includes not only SharePoint on-premise and online, but as well the broader Microsoft suite and Microsoft 365 as a whole. So thank you so much, Jennifer, for joining us today to present Mastering Findability in SharePoint and Beyond. Please go ahead whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much, Amy, for that introduction. My name is Jennifer Piercy, and as Amy had indicated, I've been in and using SharePoint for 20 some years, actually probably 20 plus. It's been about, I'm just leaving it 20 plus. It's been about since version 2001 came out in beta is when I really dove into SharePoint and have been working across all versions of SharePoint, including the original version. I've been working with SharePoint since its predecessor, which some of you may know as front page. It's kind of brings back that term a little bit. I wanted to show with you today the SharePoint search scenario that we're in today. As a part of my background working in the healthcare industry, when I first discovered SharePoint, there was so many use cases for SharePoint, this collaborative tool that came around, and I spoke about it a lot to the business, so much so that I was actually told to stop talking about SharePoint because it actually created a bit of a demand in the organization. So fast forward 20 some years later, I have not stopped talking about SharePoint. It's a wonderful tool. It's been an amazing journey all the way from on-premise to here we are in the cloud with the adoption of things like Teams and Power Platform and Dynamics as well, which is in the cloud, and of course the evolution of search, which brings us to our presentation today about kind of where we are in this scenario. We have a few options for search experiences, and the question kind of begs, which experience do I choose? Do I just stick with out of the box, or do I embrace some of the older features that were more capable, or do I delve into some things like P&P modern search to give us some of the capabilities that our current modern search doesn't give us? So I'll dive into that a little bit. Throughout this presentation, I'm going to show you some of these findabilities, these features and capabilities. I'm going to basically demonstrate some of these capabilities throughout. And near the end, we'll talk a little bit about some tools and tips. So again, how do we choose which experience do we go with? What we have is today we've got our Microsoft Search. Some people aren't aware that we've got Microsoft Search and SharePoint Search. We've got Classic and we've got Modern, and we've got the potentially the future state, which is P&P Modern Search. So we'll start at the beginning. Well, I don't know if this truly was the beginning, but at the beginning of the search experience, we had Classic, and this was the on-premise experience that we had prior to going to the cloud. Some of this may look a little bit familiar as the on-premise SharePoint kind of looks and feel. And I'm just going to pop open a search experience just so you can kind of see what kind of capabilities that it had given you. Right. So we had the Classic experience, and as you can see on my screen, these are some screen captures from a Classic search experience. So I just want to pop open my browser. I have replicated this Classic search experience by creating a Classic site on my 365 Modern tenant, and I've whipped up a Classic search page. And if you've seen this before, you've basically got your search bar. We have verticals here. Everything, this site, KMS, and acronyms. And a vertical is essentially a specific result type. So for example, as you see, everything is all the SharePoint contents. This site is anything within this classic search site that I'm on. KMS is a document library that I've pointed the search results to, and acronyms is actually it's a list of acronyms. I wanted to show you basically that we get with the classic search, I'm able to modify the search results. I think we've had this little pop-up for quite a few versions now. It's very nice to be able to see that thumbnail view of the document. And we also have filters over here. So I can filter on the type of document. So if, of course, I only want Word or PDF, I can filter based on the author. I can filter based on when it was created. Sorry, in this case, it was last modified. And I have associated a content type of KMS document type, which means to say that essentially any guidelines, any procedures, any policies I want to be tagged as a content type so that I can group them and find them in this manner. And of course, we've got some additional filters that we can sort on which functional or process group owns this content or has been tagged with the associated content. Do we have any questions so far?
There's actually a question in the chat. It says, we'd like to know if and how users could save a search that they might need to conduct regularly. Is that possible?
That's an interesting thought. And I think that Microsoft has been asked that question time and time again, because one of the things that Microsoft Search offers is personalization. So it does take into account content that you've created, content that's been shared with you, how your previous search results, and it takes that Microsoft Search takes that into consideration, and they call that a personalized experience with search. Now, having said that, I don't think that quite captures necessarily what it was that you're looking for, but we'll definitely go into a couple of areas where you can see your previously viewed items. So for example, if I were to, I'm not going to do it on the classic site, I am going to hop over to the modern site, and I will show you some instances and examples of that. But if I don't answer your question, please please let me know, and I will further talk to it. So yes, there are considerations for that. For example, you can even see here on my classic site, it is taking a few. I did clear out my search history to hopefully keep this clear, but I did do a couple of quick searches, and this is what I have searched for previously. The not home, but I did search company core values, and it was a page that had come up. So it is remembering my previous history, and it is showing me my previously viewed files. If there's no other questions, I'll just go ahead and move on from one thing I did want to note on the classic experience. Something that we do have is, and that's why I wanted to, of course, bring up the values as a search result. So something that we had the ability to do in classic search was create these best bets, they're called. So this is a best bet here. So it's basically a promoted result, and I'm able to basically say, hey, if you want to know more about our values, our company values, here's what we do. This is our company values page. And the way that basically gets set up is through your search admin. It's basically centrally managed. The nice thing is that comes up all over my search results. So I would go into my query rules, and this is how I set up this core values. So I just picked a couple of terms to associate with it. So this is on a document. So this should show me my existing rules that I had set up. So company core values, I wanted, if anybody was looking, what is our values? What is, they need reminding, whatever. I've gone to reference it from time to time just to make sure I'm doing the right thing. So essentially, I've put in some terms that I think people might look for when they're looking for values, core values, company values, things like that. So I just basically appended a bunch of terms where if you type in one or more of these search terms, you will come up with this result. And here's the action based on that search query is I want you to be able to navigate to this page, which was our company core values page. So that's how those are set up. So if there's no other questions, I'll just so I'm going to move along from classic SharePoint to our current state. So classic SharePoint is what we had. We still have it available to us. And I'll go into the reasons why in a moment. So we have our, in our current state in Microsoft 365, I'm not talking about SharePoint on-premise at this point in time. This is all just Microsoft 365 environment. So some people are not even aware that we have in Microsoft 365, we have two searches. They're both using the same index of content, but they behave a little bit differently. One of the first indicators of which one you're using is if you look in the search bar, there's like default text in there. One says search this site and the other one says search in SharePoint. So that's kind of one of the clues that you're working with a different search. I'm just going to pop open my page here and show you an example of that. So again, this is searching for content within my site. If I were to search up something like policies, for example, I see the policies that are listed just in this site. Now, if I go to the SharePoint landing page, which you can navigate to by clicking SharePoint in the top left corner of your SharePoint site. This is, again, the SharePoint landing page. I've got content that I'm following, recent content that I've worked on, things that I've bookmarked as well. But it does remember sites that I've frequently visited, sites that I have access to. And again, so if I were to search now here for policy, let's see if I can spell that right. Now what we see is a little bit different than what we saw previously. Now I can see that there's results from sites, there's results from files. So basically the scope is essentially one of the main differentiators between Microsoft Search and SharePoint Search. This is searching for content across multiple sites. It's also looking for, it's looking at content across not just my sites, but my OneDrive, content that may be shared with me. It's not looking at other tenants' OneDrives, just of course our OneDrive and anybody in my tenant who has shared with me. And that's also recently been expanded to Teams and Outlook. So if in the case that there was Teams or Outlook content that came back as a result of the term policy, I would see a vertical appear, and I believe it's called messages. So it was originally called conversations, now it's called message. So you can basically click within a vertical called messages and just search your Teams and Outlook content. Sometimes I don't know if it was mentioned in Teams, somebody sent me a link, did they email it or did they send it in Teams? That kind of gives you the ability to look across both of those buckets for content. So it comes in very handy. So do we have any questions about the Microsoft Search versus the SharePoint Search?
Yeah, one question that comes up from our clients often is, why wouldn't we just use Microsoft Search all of the time so that we get those consistent results across all the sites?
That's a good question. Which one do I use? And it really kind of depends on, I guess, the maturity of your content. Do you have have you done the exercise of organizing your content? Do you have content types associated with those with the content so that they are searchable in the way that I showed you with the classic? So it kind of depends on your journey, I guess, with the search experience. And I do like that having more information available to me, but sometimes that's a lot more information to filter through. If I just want to filter through a specific set of types of documents, it makes it a little bit more challenging. However, when you have embraced your search experience and grown that in your organization by adopting information architecture, then in that case, I would absolutely consider using Microsoft Search everywhere. Again, you're going to have the fact that you're going to get more results is less important because you've taken into consideration, how to sort the content and how to search for it a little better. And that story does get a little more improved with the adoption of the PNP Modern search. But I'm sorry, this is a typical answer. It really depends. And again, it depends on your organization. If you're smaller, you might be a little bit more flexible to grow. And I fully encourage people to dive into search and learn it and grow with it and fail fast. And it's an expression I learned and I love it. I have adopted the failing fast methodology, which is really to set it up, try it. If it works, if it doesn't work, great, you can adjust, you can adapt quickly. So it helps you get to success a little bit quicker. So I kind of like that methodology. Does that answer your question, Amy?
Yeah, thanks for covering that.
Hey, no problem. So carrying on then. So I talked about the difference between Microsoft Search and SharePoint Search. So something though that Microsoft Search gets, it kind of gets a little bit of the extra love over the SharePoint Search. I had showed you previously a best bet on our core values. So let me hop over just to a SharePoint site to start this search. It's just on a SharePoint search. So if I want to look up, say, what was the term? Edmonton office. Don't find any results here within my site. However, when I jump to the SharePoint search, reload the search page here, or the SharePoint landing page, and paste in the same, oopsie, I thought I was copying and pasting. So Edmonton. Actually, you can see there a result was already coming up. So we've got the same kind of capability of doing like those bookmarks. And now they're called answers. So it's basically like Q&A. You can put in acronyms there. You can put these kind of best bets. Locations is one of them. So if you got locations across any kind of region, you can have these answers, or in this case locations, as a card appear and give you some more information about this location. So you want this to kind of be like a promoted, a best bet result. So you don't really want to, steer people too often. It's nice to have knowing where to go when you're showing up for your first day to work. However, as I said, this is available in the Microsoft search. It was not available to me on the SharePoint side. However, I do hear that is changing, that they're going to be pushing the answers down to the SharePoint search. I don't know the timelines for that. I was looking at a roadmap and looking for another feature in particular when I came across that bit of information. They are continuously improving the search experience, both on the Microsoft search and the SharePoint search as well. So if we're clear on the SharePoint versus Microsoft Search, again, SharePoint's only searching list, library, and site scope level, and Microsoft Search is searching across the tenant and across some of your applications as well. And I do believe Dynamics is in that list as well if you have content in Dynamics in the Microsoft Search. So just to reiterate, Microsoft Search and SharePoint Search, you both use the same index, they just use it a little bit differently. And Microsoft is enhancing your search results through that personalization. So it's knowing, your previous search utilization, the content you've created, content you shared or collaborated on, and it does weigh those factors into your Microsoft search results. And that's based on your activity across M365. So it does take into consideration your activities in Outlook and Teams and things like that as well. I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, you got it.
Okay, I was just going to say there's a question that came across: how modern search experience can be customized like classic, using scopes, refiners, and filters on a page. That's a really great question because the difference between the Microsoft search experience, well, let me finish. I'll get to your question. I actually am answering that particular question, I think in the next slide or two. Microsoft Search can't really be customized to include those refiners and making them sortable. They don't really let you modify that search results page on the Microsoft Search side of things. You can add verticals, but they don't let you edit and add in those web parts. And the promoted results are exclusive to the Microsoft Search. I just wanted to kind of iterate the points on the Microsoft. And we have the modern SharePoint search experience. I say modern because, again, I just want to reiterate that we're on O365 and it's got that modern kind of look and feel. And it's the scope of the results here, of course, is your site, your list, or your library. The caveat to that is if you're using SharePoint hub sites and you have your hub sites connected, when you perform a search within your hub sites, it's going to give you back results from all of the hubs that you have access to. Again, there's always security trimming in both SharePoint search and Microsoft search. It's always going to be trimming what you don't have access to. You won't be shown the content that you don't have access to. So there's always that security trimming happening. And then, there's always this hybrid search experience. You might have, search on-premise, which might be, you might have a gateway to your M365 if you're, on the journey of getting off your on-premise to cloud. You might still be searching your content. So the index for that in that scenario lives in the cloud. And so you can basically search content on-premise as well as your O365 tenant to be able to produce results that way. You might include a mixture of SharePoint Search and Microsoft Search. I can't remember if I made this point or not, but wanted to reiterate that you could switch your sites to using Microsoft Search as opposed to the SharePoint Search. So and you could have a mix. So you could have all of your collaboration sites, being SharePoint Search, where you're commonly looking within. But maybe your communication sites, might have the Microsoft Search configured. So it really depends on your preferences, your maturity in your information architecture. And classic sites, so if you had a classic site in the cloud, so that's before modern was lit up, and you had search, Microsoft actually went and switched all of those to Microsoft Search rather than using the SharePoint Search. So that was something that was done on the back end when they were migrating folks from classic to modern. But there's options to opt out of that as well. So there is a bit of a gap in what the Microsoft Search provides you. You really don't have the ability like we did in Classic to create and customize your search results, to create those filters, to be able to say, hey, I only want to look up this particular document type, or if it was created by this division, those kinds of filters. Search verticals we have, but and PNP Modern Search does, of course, support that. And we don't have a search box currently. So if you were to go and create in your O365, if you do not have PNP Modern Search installed, if you go ahead and create a page and you go to add web parts and you look for search web parts, you're not going to find any. All you're going to find is there's like a highlighted results. It's not even results because you didn't put it in a search term, but you can really tweak that highlighted results to pick and choose some content to display. And I can poke that open real quick just to show you what I mean by that. To search page. Just creating a page. So I have the PNP Modern Search installed, so that gives me these 4 additional web parts that I mentioned here. But outside from that, we don't have the capability. We've got highlighted search in people directory. But again, you do have some capability, and they constantly are growing this. So I was kind of pleasantly surprised to see how much they have grown the capability within the highlighted content. But again, this is basically a filter showing you a preset results. So it's really don't have the flexibility, which is, I am assuming, why our attendee asked that question. What can we do to get back to what we had for capability before? And that's where PNP Modern Search comes in. Yes, it's considered open source. You get a solution from GitHub. However, PNP Modern Search. So first off, PNP is patterns and practices. So it evolved as a result of the lack of common practices, good and best practices, as a result of utilizing these large scale tools and systems, Dynamics and SharePoint, things like that. So back in 2017, when Modern started coming into the picture, that's when the development started on this PNP Modern Search. So it's been around for quite some time, and it is actually owned by the Microsoft Search team. So I feel confident that there's going to be that lockstep between changes in Microsoft 365 that could affect your solution. So there's the high level of confidence that those changes will be kept in lockstep. And PNP Modern Search is currently at version 4. So it does give us most of the capabilities that the classic search gave us, and a little bit more, which I will dive into next. So hopefully that does address I guess the reasoning behind your question. Can we do this? What can we do in our current scenario? And that is to adopt the PNP Modern Search. So what PNP Modern Search gives us is quite a lot of the customizations, and I'm going to dive into the hood here just a little bit. But these are like basically the 4 pages that you get for options that show up on the right-hand side when you edit or modify any of these search results. So without further ado, I'm going to dive in. So let's go ahead and look at a PNP Modern site. Sorry, PNP Modern Search. So this is a page that I created, and I dropped in some of those PNP Modern Search web parts. So the I left the default vertical of everything, and I just literally told it to just give me everything. And I wanted to show you kind of out of the box. You get this card view where you can kind of see. I don't think you get it. Yeah, you get. And depending on the type, you'll get a thumbnail view of the image, which is a little bit better than the classic. It seems to be a little bit more lightweight than the classic version had. So I created this vertical for acronyms. So I have a list over there, over here, of acronyms. It's kind of a long list of acronyms. So I was able to pull just that list in here. And as I'm looking at this list, though, it would be kind of nice if it was sorted. So we have this ability to sort those results. Even though I could maybe create a view and expose that view, this kind of gives us the ability. And I wanted to show you some of the customization that we can do. So on our first page of settings, we have got this edit sort options. Now I've got this list over here called acronyms. Just hop over into acronyms list. And inside of my acronyms list, I've got basically, I'm using title and I'm using a definition to tell me what the acronym stands for. And I have some additional notes just to give a further explained definition. So I just wanted to understand the acronyms list structure. So in order to get definition and notes to be crawled, I had to, I had to map these columns in managed properties. And I'll show you just lightweight how to do that. And once that these columns, I should say, are mapped to a managed property, then we're able to do things like sort on these things. So I have mapped that to a refinable string. And I want this to be able to sort alphabetically. Oh, I need an applause button. Sorry. Anyways, it's just as easy, to go ahead and do that. And again, I wasn't able to access the title. That's very common field. So I just picked definition because I knew that the definition was going to align with making this alphabetically listed. Rather than using notes, which was sometimes empty, I might do some extra steps to get rid of the term null, so that there was no explanation, just leave it blank. Do we have any questions? Does PNP modern search allow filtering results to further narrow down results based on a selection of multiple refiners filters, similar to classic search? That's a great question. So I'm just going to pop out of this here. Now that I've made it sortable, I'm just going to go ahead and republish it. And then again, if I access the acronyms now, and I think I can just do a search for everything. Right. So it's going to give me all the results in an alphabetical order. So further to your question, I've created a knowledge management document library that's got a whole bunch of really good solid documentation. We've got in that library, this is the library I'm referring to, we've got columns that describe a purpose of the document. Sometimes you look at a title and you wonder, what is the purpose of this document based on its title? So the purpose field is very handy in that we can view at a glance in a verbose manner what the contents are. And we've got a document type, so to indicate whether it's a process, reference material, a directive, those kinds of things. So further to your question, it was a very well-timed question, is how do we then filter and search on those results? So let's just jump back to our modern search page. Now, as you can see in my vertical, when I click the vertical, it hides everything else and it only shows me the knowledge management library. I didn't have the asterisk in there like I did on the everything, so it's not bringing back anything currently. So if I want to say look for a directive across agencies, let's see what these bring. So now we can see magically these filters appeared on the left-hand side. So I have set these filters to be able to use this this search query, and through this vertical give me these filters based on what has come back. So basically I got, let me just change this to policy just so we get a bit of a wider set of filters to choose from. Policy is a very common result. So as you can see, we've got 35 documents inside of this library. So one thing I've also done on this list with PNP is I was able to exclude things like folders. So only bring me like Office documents back, for example. Just so you don't kind of dirty up your results with things like folders, which is kind of irrelevant material. Anyways, as you can see on our left-hand side, just like classic sites, we've got our ability to say, I only want to see, training/education types of documents that pertain to policy, or I can, clear that out. It's not very, sometimes it doesn't, it hadn't refreshed on clearing out those values. Now, if I only want to see IT-related policies, I can go ahead and filter through the functional process group where we have set and assigned divisions or process groups in this company's terms or language. Any limit on the number of refiners? That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I haven't hit that limit yet. But I'm sure there is a limit. I will have to get back to you on that one. That's a good question. So does the, oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to say there's another question, but if you wanted to expand on that answer, then I can pause that.
Okay, yeah, no problem. I didn't see the other question. So I was going to make sure that this answered the question with regards to does the PNP modern search kind of give us the equivalent to what we had in classic search, which I think by what you see here, I think you can see that it does. I just want to make sure that I had answered that question. Was there another one, Amy?
Yeah, the question is related to those refiners as well. So the question is, how do we decide what filters or categories would be appropriate? E.g., how do we create consistency while keeping things flexible and manageable across departments and file types?
That's a great question. If you were to ask me this question, like starting a brand new, if you're just tackling this fresh, I would recommend setting up something called it. Of course, we're embracing the content types that SharePoint offers, and we even have something called this interstitial content type. You can do a quick Google on that. As a matter of fact, I think I'll include it in the references screen. And what that is essentially you've got an organizational document type, and what that organizational document type basically does is identify your business name, for example. And then you can create content based on that. So you're able to find and classify your documents in that way. So in an example where I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, because this is kind of my tips as far as future-proofing SharePoint search goes. Say if you're in a company that you merge with another company and you're assured that this is going to be no effect or impact to you, yeah, right? But we're forever going to be called, Acme and Beans, instead of just Acme. So you can imagine the effort, that goes into changing your company name. In this scenario, you can just go to that organizational document content type and make the change there. Or for example, if you want to add things to your organizational document type, you can do it there in one singular place. So that would be kind of be the mecca, the golden place you want to arrive at, because I do believe that in that scenario it offers you the maximum amount of flexibility with your information architecture. It provides in that scenario flexibility to grow if you're setting it up that way. So if you're setting it up net new, it's great to embrace that. But if you're already in a scenario where you've got tons of documents, yes, you've embraced content types, but you don't have that that organizational document layer in between the original document and then your content type. But if you're going through something like a migration where you're doing lift between, you can actually change content types. But there are some caveats that go along with that. Things you have to be watchful for, things like, security, making sure any associated metadata is like the existing content type that you copied it from. So there are, I could do a whole talk just on content types and how they can help you grow. So I hope that answered your question. There was a lot of information in that answer. But feel free to if you need further qualifications, to go ahead and jump into the chat. What is your recommendation for the best search options in SharePoint 365? And I think this kind of goes back to Amy's question with regards to which search should I embrace and use. And ideally, I like to make informed decisions, so I like to have the whole set of information available to me when I make those decisions. So I naturally kind of lean towards being inclusive of all the information, but I also don't want to be flooded with just a dump of information. If I could be presented in an organized manner that I can filter through, then it makes better sense to embrace and use the Microsoft search everywhere. going in fresh, I would embrace the interstitial content types, and I would adopt Microsoft Search Everywhere, because it gives you consistency. We don't like, and I didn't even talk yet about the if you're inside of a list or a library and you do a search within a list or a library, it's kind of more like a filter than it is using the index. So you don't get to search on things like the terms in purpose. So inside of a list or a library, it's giving you the name or the title that it's basically searching on. If you want to search on these additional fields, you have to go and index them inside of your library properties in order for that to appear. But that doesn't jump out of the box that this is a filter versus a search. Versus what we see in search. So, but it does speak to the consistency of experience, and I think consistency is very important for user experience, especially when we're throwing so many changes at them on a regular basis. What about cross-platform findability, out of the box and tooling? So back in classic search, we had these what was called federated search. So it basically allowed you to search additional content stores. So I could have a federated search. I could federate to Google and bring back Google search results in with my search results. So yes, we do have the capability, these search scopes, to be able to create connections to other content. Again, well, I guess we're kind of here. How do we get the most out of our current investments? Something you can do today in your Microsoft Search is break into those verticals. If you've got a good repository for content that's solid, and you're embracing those content types, I'd suggest embracing the power of the verticals. And something we used to be able to do too is use these queries. So something I've done is I've KMS doc type. I've actually given that what you call an alias. So I can use that alias to search for content. So let me show you what I mean by the term alias. So first off, I've created a column, and then I've mapped that column to a managed property. So out of the box, Microsoft does provide some pre-built refinable strings. So if you're going to use any of these columns for search, you have to use the built-in refinables. So they've got refinable strings, refinable dates. So basically you open up one of these existing ones, and then you can add in your column or columns. So as I mentioned, I created a KMS document type. So this particular string maps to this document type, which I will, oops, I'm gonna add a little pop-up bar that gets in my way here. So in these documents, got this document type. So these are all the document types which align and are being searched now as a result of creating the managed property. So because I gave it this alias, I can use this alias. Just navigate to my home site, SharePoint. Oops. And this doc type. Now I want to see policies. All of the documents that have been tagged with the term policy. And because I have mapped that to a managed property, I'm able to use this alias. Where's the alias set? Let me show you. So when I map this existing refinable string to a column, I have options here within. Now most of these are grayed out, but don't worry, they'll be searchable, and you do have some advanced capabilities. These are they're going to be sortable. You can refine on them and filter on them. And here's where you set your alias. And that capability allowed me to go ahead and type in KMS : and then based on the type of documents, I can filter down to the particular document type. And to add the KMS document type, I basically added a mapping. Anytime that you create a column in SharePoint, it always prepends it with OWS _. So it does help you find it a little bit easier. And then once it's mapped, what you have to do is you have to go in and you have to reindex your library. get used to it. It's just something we have to do. Unfortunately, we don't have the access to trigger these jobs. We basically have to wait in a queue because we're in a shared tenant. We have to wait for other folks that are in the queue to go first. So it could take an hour, it could take 24 hours, and I've heard something like 1 million documents can take a week to search. So this is not a sore point, but it is something that bugs me just because we used to have the ability to kick off these jobs. Anyways, what I wanted to show you inside of a document library, you have to go into the advanced settings, into the list settings, list or library settings. And you go into the advanced settings, and inside there, you'll have an option to re-index this document library. So once you make a change to your managed property, you'll have to come back in here as well. If you make changes to your columns, you'll have to come back in here as well and re-index this document library. And again, this is the caveat language to say it could take a while. So you just basically have to acknowledge that, and then now I'm in the queue for a change. So the next time that, or when it gets re-indexed, those changes will be made available to me. Can you please say more about 1 million documents? It can take a week to search. It's not the searching, sorry, it's the indexing. So the indexing, somewhere I had read recently about how long it can take to re-index your document library, and hopefully they really got that down, because that would be painful to do, especially if you're actively making changes. In that scenario, I would take a very small subset and create a mock library and make all my changes in there before I made a change to a library that hosted over 1 million documents, which I do believe it's capable out of the box, but at that point in time you have to make some considerations and how that information gets displayed for performance reasons. Is my screen set to maximum? It is now. Wasn't previously.
We have one more question in the Q&A as well.
Sure.
It's a great question about user adoption and organizational change management. So it says, if we use metadata to enhance search, how might we encourage colleagues to tag their documents? We're in the process of converting deep folder structures to document sets and metadata, but our users are confused.
Got you. So there's a number of ways that you can approach this. I always look to, okay, what's currently on the tool horizon? So we have this tool that's come down the pipe. It's called Purview. And I think used to be called SharePoint Expert. Of course, there's a expert license that goes across with that. But Purview will actually go and analyze all your documents for this particular exercise, and it can do some intelligent categorizing for you. So first off in the exercise would be getting your information architecture straight. So getting your organization of how this content is going to be, where and how it's going to be stored, and how it's going to be retrieved. So once you've got that solid, your information architecture solid, then you can, make sure that your SharePoint system has got the content types to support that information architecture. Bake it into your navigation, and here's my next slide. It's like you guys knew what I was going to say next, I swear. Empower your users, train them, educate them on doing basic search. I became a search, it became a part of my secret sauce when I was taught early on by a Yahoo search expert. Came into our organization and did a talk. But what he taught me on just using those core search qualifiers or disqualifiers was key in being able to find content quickly that was relevant to what you need. And yeah, like I said, when there's been a significant change made to your search, so after you've gone through this exercise of adapting your SharePoint to your information architecture, make sure that there's awareness. So do some, awareness planning as to, these are the changes. This is how it makes your life better. Do quick little videos, do little workshops, documents, whatever. But get your users educated on even just basics of search and any changes that you've made and how you search. And in good organizations, I've seen search documentation showing people how to get to this content and how to get to that content. And again, if we're fast forwarding even to a year and a half from now, we've got these co-pilot tools now. So that basically allows you in your own plain language to ask your search query. So, and search is a great conversation. We talk about, how to access your content, but we're coming up into an era where we also want to make sure that it's locked down. So you do kind of want to run these tools, just make sure you're not overexposing content. And that's something that Purview can definitely help you with, is finding out where your weaknesses are in that regard. So tough question to ask, but a very good question. And it is a journey. It's not something that you're just going to get and do right out of the box on day one.
And we've got one more. So the attendee asks, do you have templates or best practices to document an enterprise information architecture to support adopting document sets, content types, metadata, hubs, team sites, etc.?
Yes, you guys. I have a references slide with a whole bunch of links on it that I will share with you, but I will add that before it gets distributed. So some other things that we can do to help with adoption is we as I guess owners or of the content, we can review our search analytics. So at the tenant level, we're provided with usage reports across not just your SharePoint, but also across your Office apps as well. So it tells us, when content is being accessed, what content is being accessed, and how they're accessing it. Whether it's PC, mobile, coming from China, wherever. So it does give us a lot of insight as to what's being accessed, but you can also see kind of what's not being accessed. We can kind of tweak, that content. Maybe it's not in the right location, maybe it's not accessed the right way, things like that. But it does give us, click-throughs, so impressions, how long people are on pages, things like that. And I do believe that they give us specific analytics around the usage of those bookmarks and those acronyms. Those remember, they use location. So that's all kind of lumped in with modern answers as they're referring to them. So they've got their own report as well. So that kind of basically concludes the SharePoint search. And with Copilot, coming down the pipe, that kind of gives us the ability to use our plain natural language to ask questions. One of the things that Elantis does offer is we can do like a readiness assessment. But again, we talk about opening and exposing access to your content, but at the same time, you don't want to overexpose. You don't want to, have too much information available. So you want to make sure that your data is secured, your access and your permissions, and you want to make sure that things like sharing policies and things like that are locked down and adhering to policies as well. So something that Elantis can help you with if you are looking for, getting ready for the next evolution, because I'm going to ask for it. The expectation from end users is that search is going to be very Google, quick like Google, right? If you're asked what do you need out of search, that's typically the number one answer is you want to quick and easy. So for those kinds of folks, you might want to have a much the term I want to use is a lighter weight search result page. So you don't have the a thumbnail of the file appearing next to the search results will significantly improve the result time. So you can do things like that. So let me have a look here, what we can do with the Copilot search. So I did mention some resources. I'm going to, as we field some questions, I think I'm going to drop in there the P&P best practices link as well. So I may have some additional resources available for you on the resources page. But I just want to make sure that if you wanted to delve into any of these topics on your own, that you can look up some content here.
It looks like there's just one more question, which is around the Copilot licensing. The question is there extra licensing involved for Copilot assisted search?
Yes, I have to get it at the tune of about $40 per user. The last time I looked at it, which was within 24 hours. And licensing, that's one of the things that's constantly moving and constantly changing. But yes, Copilot does currently require, especially if you're going to use the Copilot in the way that I had just described, I think it's about $40 per user per month. So there's a bit of a barrier in accessing that, but go slow and test it out significantly before enabling. The tools, like I said, like Purview, can help you tighten down your content.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer, for this really informative presentation.
So I think that you're going to be telling us about a future webinar.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, this topic is very relevant. We really appreciated the audience participation, lots of questions, which is great. Kind of furthering on this topic, there's a couple things that we wanted to touch on. So first off is our next webinar, which is coming up May 2nd, same time as this one. The theme of this one is increase your efficiency and compliance with automating records management in Microsoft. So will be also very informative session. So please join us. I believe we'll get a link in the chat to the registration so you can get that into your calendars. Also mention, if you're interested in furthering your maturity in Microsoft 365, including SharePoint, of course, that Elantis is here to help. So if you're looking to get an assessment and understand kind of where you're at with Microsoft and where, most importantly, where you can optimize and get more from your licensing, we're offering an assessment and a roadmap to webinar attendees. For a limited time, you can get 25% off that engagement. So please email info@Elantis to find further details about that offering, and we can help you make the most of the Microsoft platform. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for your time today, and thank you for your questions.